Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to another episode of the Infertile Diagnosis. I'm your host, Monica Cox, along with Sarah Clark, and we're here to support, inspire, and educate those who are all consumed with the label of infertility. We totally know how you're feeling. Both Sarah and I were diagnosed with a form of infertility before we hit our 30s. We let the fertility experts dictate our past and ignored what our bodies were trying to tell us for far too long. So here we are, helping you take control of your infertile diagnosis. It's Friday to some people. I hope you've had a beautiful week and you have something amazing lined up this weekend. This is part 2 of this kind of special edition of the infertile diagnosis this week. Last week we talked about health coaching, ups and downs of working with different people and our experiences, and at the end we started getting into why people go straight to the IVF clinics instead of trying to improve their situation before they go to an IVF clinic. Like me and Sarah, we are the perfect examples of not listening to our bodies and just jumping right into medical assistance, which, the outcomes of our stories would have been completely different if we would have just taken a step back and, thought about what was going on. And maybe there is quite a lot of people out there feeling the same way. And this is one of the main reasons I started working one-on-one with clients and now have created the Fertility Reconnect course to help people really hone in on the underlying root cause of their infertility and maximize their chances of using IVF, or even if you give it some time and be a little bit patient, get pregnant naturally. So registration closes in 3 days on the 15th. So if you are ready to make some big changes and take those steps to reconnect your fertility, you've got 3 days to make up your mind. And if you are like, oh, I want to do this, but I can't commit right now, like I said before, I'll be running the course 2 more times in 2020. May and September are going to be our official start months. So you can keep an eye out for that. And obviously there is loads of free information over on the website, which is mymindfulme.com. So make sure you head over there. And obviously, this podcast is here to support you. My Instagram over at Fertility Reconnect, my YouTube channel, which is Fertility Reconnect, and I am on TikTok as well, making some pretty funny ass videos. So if you're on there, you can follow along at Fertility Reconnect again. So without further ado, let's get to part 2. We are going to get right up on our soapboxes. Sarah and I record these 3 at a time. We get together once or twice a month and do this. And last time we talked about coaching and the pitfalls, the up and down, what you need to do, you have a lot of power during coaching. And we started getting into why people don't fucking do it. Why people don't do the diet and lifestyle, because in our time it wasn't out there. We didn't have the resources that you guys do now. Even just us two alone, I feel like there's a handful of podcasts and blogs that you can go to and do it. You wouldn't have to pay a fucking cent, right? To anyone. You can get pregnant. And I would say for the majority of people, naturally, by implementing the right things. But we're humans and we live in a really fucked up society. So we need support. We need that coaching. I know I needed it. I could not have done it on my own. I needed the accountability. And yeah, we're still all just running to the fucking IVF clinics. we did, right? We're not like shaming anyone. We're not saying, this is not a judgment because we did it. But now we woke up. I love how you say that on your podcast. I just want you to wake up. It's like, yeah, fuck, man, just wake up.
Slap. Yeah. I think we're all like, a, a part of society that is waking up, like with climate change and all these other things that are going on. People are waking up going, no more. Like once you discover this sort of stuff, you can't look away. And some of the, obviously some of these changes can be difficult, or other people, everyone would be doing them, right? That's why when you do these changes, your whole circle of friends, everyone around you is like, what the heck is she doing? And they get pissed off. It's because it's kind of like, oh, maybe I should do that, but it's too scary. But to me, if you're listening to this podcast, like if you could have done it by yourself, you already would have done it.
Mm-hmm.
Like you already would have done it. So that's why, like, bring on someone to help you. And really, to me, IVF, it's there as a last step. But if you can get pregnant naturally by making these changes and impact your health, your children's health, your pregnancy, why are we going over there and spending? And we see the fallout of this. People coming to us like 3, 4, 5 failed cycles, and in a very, very bad place emotionally. When that didn't need to be the case.
Yeah.
There could have been other stuff that they could have done to avoid all that freaking horrible pain. And then even with multiples and all the stress with the pregnancies, with that, like a whole bunch of stuff that this industry, I think, has created. And look, both of us benefited from the industry, but if I had known about this other stuff, I would have done it differently.
Yeah. Yeah. I spent the first 4 months of my second son, which was a natural pregnancy, really pissed off. Like, and I mean, really, really mad that I didn't have to go through what I went through. I mean, you're talking fucking like, almost 6 years of never seeing a positive pregnancy
Yeah.
test. And then 2 failed IVF cycles, especially after my second one, doing loads of diet changes, went paleo, and it's still not working. In receiving a positive pregnancy test, I got the evidence to show that my diet and lifestyle changes mattered. I went from having no viable embryos, they looked fragmented, they were shit, to 5 healthy ones. And it's insane that we have this knowledge now, right? We have this knowledge. It's like scientifically proven that diet and lifestyle changes matter, and yet a large portion of us still aren't fucking doing it, or doing it kind of half-ass and seeing if it kind of works, and then going like, yeah, just straight to the clinic still. I mean, I talk to women all the time, and some of them are like, I've only been trying for a few years, but yet I've done 2 or 3 IVF cycles. And I'm like, what the fuck? How'd you get there so quickly? And they're like, I have one, and she listens to this podcast, so hello, that was tracking her cycles at home, noticed that there was an issue, went to the doctors, and they sent her straight to the clinic. And I'm just like, man, like, to me, you don't even have major health issues. You don't even have major necessarily infertility issues. Like, you're a very clean cut case of how, if you just work on your stress levels and improve your diet, give it time, be patient, because I think that's the issue.
Yes.
With most of this community.
Yes.
Is that we are impatient, and every month is another month gone. It's almost valued, right, in that way. Like a fertility journey, your currency is time. And I don't know if it's what I mean, obviously it's every month you're seeing it tick by, but then you have this, the society pressure, especially because a lot of us are waiting until our late 20s or our mid 30s to have kids. And then all of a sudden it's like, shit, I'm in my 40s and, I'm not pregnant yet.
Yeah, I think it's two things. It's, the patience, where, and I'm a very, that's my trigger, and my pattern is to be impatient and bang the head and go, why isn't this working? So that's what I have constantly through my life been working on. So the patients, so we are impatient. So, and if the technology is there, why don't we go and use it?
Mm-hmm.
But that's like, it's there for a small percentage of us need it.
Yeah.
If you've got blocked tubes that are permanently blocked, that's why it was developed to help block fallopian tubes. But now we've got all these other people with different diagnoses and going to donor eggs, and we work with a lot of people with the low AMH and the premature ovarian failure and the low ovarian reserve and unexplained as well and autoimmune. But like, why are we going over there first? And a lot of the times for low ovarian reserve, they're being told, nothing,
Will work.
nothing's going to work. It's an advanced maternal age. But then you've got a 30-year-old who has low AMH. And we're seeing this more and more and more because of our standard, Western diet and lifestyle of this going on. So to me, the patient's piece, but so there's an impact on the females, on the female's body from all the hormones that they're taking, and studies linking that to cancer, and also on the child too, studies linking that to other health issues for the children. Mm-hmm. Like why is that the first step? I don't understand. Like it is kind of baffling, but I think and a lot of it is that we put this trust in doctors. They have the white coat, they know better. And that's why to have that team, because and it's not excluding your RE or your OBGYN. It's not excluding the doctors, but it's not only going to them. It's not just running straight to them. There's other things we can do, and they're not an expert. I don't think I've met an RE that's been trained in the functional approach. So they're not an expert on diet, on environmental toxins, on gut infections, the mental emotional side of this. Some clinics are bringing in mindfulness and mental emotional things. Other clinics are bringing in naturopaths. And I think unless your naturopath is trained in the functional approach, I've been to a lot of naturopaths before. Some of them can be, if they're trained in the functional approach, they're great. To me, if they're not trained in the functional approach, it's not a very targeted approach. And we see a lot of people coming to us with bags of supplements, like reams of supplements, making all these changes, and they haven't even done any of the diet changes. They're like, well, maybe I took out sugar. You haven't even done an elimination diet. You haven't. They're partially gluten free. Well, if you have a high gluten sensitivity, like non-celiac gluten sensitivity, that'll be a huge factor as to why potentially you can't conceive. We've had people just doing that and getting pregnant. Yeah. So I think it's to be able to, and it's hard, right? As someone who's impatient, I completely get this, because this is me. But I didn't have this information. I didn't know the impact on my health, my children's health. To me, it'll be there, but pause this thing for 6 months, dig into why, and really, it's life-changing. This stuff is life-changing when you're able to really address these health issues.
100%. I mean, it's the time and patience. And I don't know why. We didn't do this on purpose, but it took us 3 years to even go to do an IVF round. And then when that failed and we decided to change the diet, we took a really long time. I want to say almost a year before we went and did another IVF round. We changed clinics. And we put in the work, as much work as we knew best at that time. And when that failed, I took another 8 months before I went and did a frozen embryo transfer. Like, I just didn't jump into things because I went AIP, and I was like, okay. And maybe it was like timing with my husband's work. I don't know why. I mean, my husband is like someone that you would think he smokes weed because he's just like super relaxed. Maybe I was letting him guide it. I'm not sure, but I'm so grateful that I wasn't in charge, because I think I would have just done back to back to back to IVFs, and it would have never fucking worked for me ever. I mean, I know some people have success with back to back IVFs and it's a numbers game, and maybe they don't have that deep underlying issue like I did, and so it works. But for me, it just never ever would have worked. And obviously getting pregnant with my first son, and really being on the autoimmune paleo diet, like I was so fucking strict, maybe a little bit obsessive, because I was so petrified. I didn't have the knowledge that that if I had one piece of, like bolognese or something, that I wouldn't miscarry, right? It doesn't work like that. But in my head, that's how it was. Like, I was so petrified. And so I think that just gave my body time to do the necessarily healing that it needed to do. And then that's, I mean, I had that miscarriage with our last frozen embryo transfer. And to my knowledge and my understanding, those embryos just weren't good enough. My body was healthy enough, and I was even doing immune suppressant drugs with that. So if they were viable embryos, they would have stuck around. And then, yeah, a natural pregnancy. But that was years, right? We're talking a really long time. And I don't know if my fertility reconnected any sooner because of the time and what was going on with my husband's work. We didn't try naturally from when my son was born to the first time. It was actually the first time having sex, unprotected sex, that I got pregnant with our second son. So I don't know. It could have taken 3 months. It could have taken 6 months. It could have taken a year. I don't know. But it was time. I gave my body time unknowingly to slowly make all these important changes. And I think that's why I do what I do now, is that I have this knowledge and I can go, here it is. If you implement this to your best ability, it's not going to take you years. It's not going to take you multiple failed IVFs. You can do this from the moment go. And fingers crossed, it's 6 months, maybe a year, depending on how deep your issue is, that you can reconnect your fertility. And I think it's not funny, it's sad that we're willing to do round after round within 6 months to a year, but we're not willing to invest in ourselves in the long-term goal.
And I just think, because a lot of people that come to me, they have tried some diet, they have worked on their mind, they have some of the environmental toxins, some of that, but I think they haven't fully taken the whole functional approach and gone like deep into all of those. So they may, because people saying to me, oh, I've already done all that. But if you haven't worked with a functional practitioner, you haven't done all of it. And you may feel that you've done everything in conventional side of things, but you're missing a whole other side to this. And it's not like, it's no one's fault. You'll find this when you're ready. Yeah. And we could be talking about this. We could be on here for years talking about this stuff. And maybe you just found it now and finally you're ready to listen. Mm-hmm. Right? Because it's interesting when we're in that, like, myopically focusing on our infertility diagnosis. The doctor says the egg, it's not going to work, that I can only do it this way. And maybe you won't even be able to take the blinders off and see what's around you. But hopefully you're here right now listening to this podcast, that there's other ways to look at this. And it's some of what you may have done, you just haven't connected the dots, right? To dig deeper into each of these things, because there has not been one person that we've worked with where we're like, wow, everything looks great. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I don't think we can do anything. Yeah. There has not been that person.
Yeah, exactly. And we're not saying that everyone has to go as deep as we had to go. I think there's a perfect example on Instagram. I follow a small group of people, and this couple, they're both on Instagram, and they made huge lifestyle and diet changes, I think, on their own accord. I don't think they had anyone suggesting things, but he had low sperm count and mobility, and he had, I think, I forget the word. He went, sorry?
The varicosal thing?
No, he went to see someone, and they weren't like a dietary specialist or anything. It was more like herbs and stuff, but she wouldn't give him the herbs until he stopped drinking, stopped smoking, stopped doing the late. She had this thing of 10 things, and he's like, okay. So he went away, he did it for 3 months. His surprise, his sperm improved. So then she gave him.
It improved. It's not a miracle. Yeah, it is a miracle, but it's not a miracle. Like, it improved because of.
So she was doing it as well. You follow them on Instagram, and they did 2 rounds of IVF, and they both failed. They didn't get any in the freezer. The story is insane. So she went to her OBGYN, and wanted like the next step, right? Okay, we're going to take a break. We can't financially afford it, but let's just like regroup and then we'll come back in like 18, 24 months. And they're like, yep, fine, fine, fine. Let's just do a scan. I think they were going to do the next step was kind of like to see what was going on her lining. And she was fucking pregnant. He put it up and he's like, do you know that you're pregnant? And she's like, no. And they both
Oh
like
my
were like, what the
goodness.
fuck? And she got pregnant 2 weeks after her failed cycle, so after her period. And he messaged me and I just said to him, I was like, dude, super stoked for you, but I'm not surprised. You guys put in the incredibly hard work that you needed to do to reconnect those fertility links. Like she had unexplained and he had low mobility. And I think there was like some other like issues, but they were achievably fixed by diet and lifestyle.
Yeah, we've had people that, sorry, it's donor eggs for you, and they're pregnant naturally in 4 months with making some of these changes. So sometimes people, it takes longer. If there's autoimmune disease, sometimes that can take longer depending how long it's been there for. But other times it's like you just actually go like hardcore with a diet of food, perhaps gluten, that you're hardcore taking that out and you're pregnant. So it is different for everyone, but yeah, having someone being able, that like detective, to be able to see,
Yeah.
well, what's been missed? Blood sugar, is there thyroid, is there iron, why is your vitamin D low, like all these different things. Well, why, and then you can kind of go, oh, and you're like, the light bulb's going off going, oh damn, I was told all that was normal.
Right. And I just, because they're saying like, well, we're shocked. And I'm like, well, because you don't have the knowledge that that's what you had to do. Like, I just wonder if you started, if that couple started working with someone before they went and did IVF and got all the picture together,
Yep.
they would have said, I think they spent tens of thousands on IVF, overseas IVF. And it's just like, I wonder if they would have just taken the time, had a little patience, really dug deep, and gave themselves 6 months if they didn't have to go through all that. But like you say, sometimes we just have to, right? Like I know I would have. If someone would have sat me down at the beginning of my journey and said, change your diet, I'd be like, no, I'll just try IVF. I have unexplained. There's nothing wrong with me.
Yep. I probably would have been the same, but then I didn't know this stuff then. Like
Yeah.
you and I discovered this. I discovered it like 10 years ago. So I don't know. I think now it's actually with keto and paleo, like those kind of things being more popular. I think people are more aware of how diet can help. I think, doing some of those things, you do want to dig deeper, and trying to figure it out by yourself can be confusing. And then
Yeah.
you second guess yourself. You're like,
And
oh,
because,
it's not really working. I did gluten free for like 2 months and it didn't work. Well, will
yeah,
you
and
have
that's
to
the
stay
thing.
gluten free? Yeah.
Hmm. But that's the thing is like, it's your IVF didn't work. So therefore it wasn't the diet and lifestyle changes,
Yeah.
like it's, you're sitting there going like, no, the IVF didn't work. Like,
Yeah.
and
No, it's confusing and frustrating, and it's um but that it's like having someone to guide you along the way, to know that you're not crazy, that you're like, yeah, that you've got this, and to be able to um it's a pause. It's not I wouldn't even say it's a pause for 6 months, because in those 6 months you're doing like foundational changes that'll like improve your health forever.
yeah. And why do we look at IVF moving forward anyways? There's no guarantee.
Yeah,
It's
30%
not,
success rate
right?
average. Although, sometimes I'm seeing that actually it's either, sometimes people are saying that's like 70% success rate depending on what clinic you go to, but like an average success rate of 30%. And then like with IUI is like 10%. And then people are doing like, I mean, people doing like 15 IUIs,
Yeah.
where I've heard after like 3, they're, they're not helpful. And with a 10% success rate, like why are we doing that? And we're taking metformin and we're Clomid and all these different drugs that are having all these different side effects. Like, I don't know. It's just an
Yeah.
interesting thing as to why why we're doing these things this way. Like with conventional medicine telling us this is the way it has to be. Why?
When IVF fails you.
Oh,
And I'm just kind of sitting there going like, I didn't know IVF was like, the answer to our issues. Like, why are we putting it on IVF and it's their fault that we're not getting pregnant? I don't understand why we're blaming IVF for our failures. And I do these posts on Instagram about what fucked your fertility. And every time, without fail, someone comments, that's what do they say? That's not very positive. You're making women feel guilty and shameful that it's their fault, their infertility, they have fucked up infertility. And I'm just sitting there going like, one, if I can make anyone feel any way, it wouldn't be guilt and shame.
No.
And two, I'm sorry, like for a large majority of us, we are doing things unknowingly that is fucking our fertility.
Yes, we don't know. You don't know until you, yeah.
So I'm trying to get them to look at their life like I had to look at my life and go, okay, fair enough. The way I'm eating is fucking my fertility.
Yeah.
Fair enough. The way I'm thinking and all the mental and emotional issues that I'm having with myself is making me not believe in myself, that I can't get pregnant, that I'm not good enough, that I'm not worthy enough. So yes, I'm sorry, for a lot of us, we are fucking our fertility, and we need to start taking charge and stop blaming IVF for failing us. Like, I'm sorry, we are failing ourselves.
It's disempowering to do that. It's empowering to be like, oh wait, okay, there's something I can do here. Yeah, the stuff I'm putting on my skin, that's fucking my infertility. Oh, the Clorox spray I'm spraying in the kitchen, that potentially could be screwing with you, with your infertility. Oh, the food that's not organic with all the pesticides, that could be messing with your fertility and your husband's sperm. All these things that but then we can do something about it.
Right? You
So
have the
either
power.
you're an action-oriented person, you're like, damn, yeah, okay, let's do it. Or you go into the pity party and it's kind of, and maybe you need to sit in a little pity party for a while. Sometimes, I do that we have one of those in our mindfulness fertility series. There's a little slide we have going, okay, are we having a pity party? And maybe we are, and maybe we need to have that for a little while, and that's okay. But then, do you go down there for days? Is it hours, days, weeks, months, years? Like, we all go down to that dark cave, but how long are you hanging out down there feeling like crap? And that's where you need to, like, someone's like, we're throwing you down the lifeline saying there's things you can do, and I guess you either take it or you don't.
Yeah, exactly. And it is your mindset, like, and what we've just talked about, like, we have control. We don't have to go to the clinics and give them all the control. If you need to do IVF, then thank God it's there, and that's great, but maximize your chances, and for most of us, you can do it. You can do this. And it's hard, like shit. I mean, we live in a society that is bombarding us with loads of toxins in our mouth, on our skin, in our head, in our air. But it is the fact that you have control over a lot of them and that you can do something about it. And I'm really kind of upset that we are now, as a community, blaming IVF for our failure to become a mother. It really fucking pisses me off. But
yeah,
that's, I guess, where I'm at.
It's like victim mentality, right? Where you're not a damn victim. You're like an empowered couple who can take charge and make changes to focus on their preconception health. There's things you can do in a targeted manner, though. Targeted is the key.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is if you are listening to this podcast, you are taking control by listening to this podcast, right?
Absolutely.
Like, and I want to give you a little round of applause for that. Well done you.
Go.
Right, we're gonna get off our soapbox and let you continue on with your day. Thank you so much once again for joining us, and I hope you have a beautiful weekend, and we will see you next week. Bye. A few more things before you go. If you like what we're doing, please leave a review and or a rating. We would greatly appreciate it, and it would totally help us out. Also, if you like to connect with either of us, you can find me, Monica, over at mymindfulme.com, and you can connect with Sarah over on fabfertile.com. all the links you need to find us on our websites or social media, any products we talk about, book, special offers, or any guests that we have on. You're going to find all that information in the show notes. So that's it. Thank you once again for being with us here on the Infertile Diagnosis, and have a beautiful day.